Hello, Srinivas.
Hello.
Hi. Good evening.
Good evening.
Mm.
You can start the recording.
Started.
Started. You're able to see my screen. This is the topic we discussed during our last class.
Yeah.
Do you go out on any of the topic?
Clear.
Clear, right?
Mm.
That we end up to that first. Yesterday we just did a basic one, right? To how to connect to database, right?
Yeah.
So we'll use this table as a reference, student table, and we'll try to student table. Yes, student table. Test columns. We'll use this one. We'll try to insert, update, delete, and we'll do all the actions on this table.
Mm.
Just copying the person title class. Just coded yesterday to the today's world. Just save it with some other name. The rest everything is same.
Okay. Mm.
Now, as I told you, first we need to create a Java class, right? So we have a table. We have chosen this as a table. So it is having 3 fields: name, date of birth, and ID. So first we need to create a equivalent Java file for it.
Mm.
We call it as a model class or the Pojo class, which is basically having only the properties and the setter and getter. It doesn't have anything else.
Okay. The model class.
It's a model class.
Okay.
So the 3 fields, right? ID name,
Mm.
ID name, date of birth.
Mm.
So using Eclipse, we'll generate the code. Means setter and getter you do not need to write. We have an option directly. If you choose this option, select all. So whatever the fields, for all the fields, it will generate a getter and setter. Instead of you
Mm.
typing, you can simply use this option.
Mm.
Right? It has generated setter and getters.
Okay.
It's an easy way. Now your Java class is ready and DB class is ready. We need a mapping. Right now I'm using annotations. So I'll just mark it as, which is the latest one. So before the annotations were there, like we have to code, we have to create a separate XML file which indicates the mapping.
Mm.
It's basically in that XML file, we should tell this is Java class name and this is the database field name. This is the Java class field and this is the database field and these are the data types. So the mapping has to be created in a separate XML file, which is called as Hibernate mapping file. Okay.
Okay.
So that
Mm.
was used before the annotations. It was a like kind of like a painful task. Means we need to do a lot of settings, a lot of configurations come by mapping everything. With the annotations, you do not need to, still we have to tell the mapping, but we do not
Mm.
need to create a separate XML file. So in Java class itself, like you can tell that this is my database table name, this is database column name, all those things. Means
Mm.
the
Mm.
overall effort is reduced.
Mm.
So I'll just show you the sample file how it look like. First I'll code the settings how it is, and before the annotations how it is look, I'll show you that.
Mm.
No annotations, right?
So no, annotations means we are mapping
Yes,
class, Java class, and
yes, we are mapping. These two annotations, enumerate at the rate means at the rate if you are saying something, it's an annotation. Do you
mm.
remember at the rate override we did in the overriding,
Mm.
right? So that is the override annotation. Like that, at the rate annotation means entity annotation. So like that, whatever you do with the at the rate prefix, and if you add that some more, it's an annotation. Okay.
So what is this iterate table name is equal to student?
Yes,
Iterate table.
I'm talking about this.
Okay.
At rate, the entity indicates that this student class is an entity.
Okay.
Okay. At rate table name equal student indicates that for this Java class, so I'm mapping a database table name whose name is student. Got it?
Okay. Okay.
So like that, we are going to tell all the settings that what is the equivalent field for your Java to DB.
But just now you told something about overriding. Where did it get that point?
One second. I have to go back to the back in olden days. Yes, you remember when we covered
Uh,
annotations, I took one
oh,
example as overriding.
yeah.
Similarly,
Yeah, yeah,
we'll be learning, we'll be using some other annotation down the line when we learn the new frameworks, right?
yeah. Oh, okay, okay. Got it.
So this is just a override example to show the
Okay.
override functionality. Like that, we have a lot of annotations.
Mm, mm,
Here
mm,
are some more annotations.
mm,
Clear?
clear.
First, I'll type it and then we'll discuss it once again. No, you are clear of these two annotations, right? Now,
Clear.
so this is ID is a primary key, right? So in general, ID means primary key, right? You know what is primary key? Unique value for any database table. So if we are talking about the student table, student ID will be the unique, right? For the
Yeah,
table,
yeah.
for each and the
Yeah.
when you are dealing with an Hibernate, so you need to tell the Hibernate that what is your primary key ID.
Okay.
Okay, so out of these three columns, so by looking at by looking at the data in general, also we can easily tell that we should tell one of the column as ID. So ID column, here the column name ID is mapping to this field. Okay, this field. So I'm telling that the ID, I would like to mark this as a primary key. So I marked as an ID whose column name is, whenever I say at the rate column name, I'm referring to the database column whose column name equal to ID. So this ID is your name of your Java field that you named it as ID. So I'm mapping to database column name ID.
Okay.
And I'm telling this is generated value, means it's going to generate the value whenever you save a record. It's just increment with the student number with +1. That means you do not need to enter a value for it because it's a ID, right? ID should be unique. So we are not giving a chance to the developer to increment it. We are taking the help of Hibernate to increment it +1. What it generated value means, I'm instructing in Hibernate by configuring the database field saying that this is a primary key column and whose column name is in the database is this one, and this field is the auto generated value, right? These are the three values. So all three properties applicable to ID. So on which field we have added the annotations, those properties are applicable only for that property. So these are the three annotations are applied to this field. Okay. So obviously this cannot be ID, right? So ID means only unique one, primary key, right? Out of all the columns, you will choose only one. And this one I have not added a column. Reason I'll tell you. And for this one, I told you your database Java column name is date of birth. You have named, right? But its database field name is at the column name equal DOB. So we are telling the mapping. If you understood. Your field name, what is your database field name? Then you might get it out that for this one we told the column name, and for this one we told the column name. For this one we have not. The reason is it's an optional, because
for the ID, the column name is
for the ID I used a at the rate column, right?
column.
To indicate the column name. Date of birth also I added a column name annotation.
Yeah.
But the name I have not added because it's an optional. The reason is, if you observe, date of birth field name in the database and date of birth field name in the Java, both the column names that used are different, right? There I said date of birth. Here I said DOB.
Okay.
Hibernate cannot understand that what is date of birth and what is DOB, right? You need to tell them DOB some field in X equal to some field in Y, right? That's what you told them. But in the name case, both the places it is same. Right? So if it is same, you do not need to mention the column annotation. Even if you mention also, there won't be an issue. So for this one also optional. Okay, the names are same. The Java field name and the database field name. It is an optional. It's not required. Which is a good practice to just follow the same thing. Understood? So
Understood.
I mentioned your DB settings and the Java settings. Same thing it was used earlier. I told you something. So whatever we discussed now, this is a way to write a separate separate XML file. So here, this is a older approach. Here, Suppose this is a student class and table name is student. Here the example here is person. Okay, we'll talk about only person. Your class name is person, table name is so and so, whose field name is ID, whose data type is integer, whose database column name is ID, and which is a generated, means automated generated value. And the next one, whose name equal to name and data type equal to string, column name equal to database column name. Whenever I say column tag, it is a database tag. It's like this. So if you look at it, this is kind of painful, right? So writing and just simply using annotations, like, see, just for this part, see here, I just highlighted only 3 lines. So this complete part has to be created, right? So just this got completely replaced when you started working with the annotations. Otherwise, it's like more or like we need to write all the settings for each and every field.
Okay.
Yeah, this is a older approach. So this was ruled out now. Still, this can work, but usually, like, obviously, we'll go for the convenient option, right? So now we started using this one because we prefer the convenient way and easy way. That's where the annotation.
Okay.
Okay.
Understood.
The reason I'm telling you, in case if you are looked at that code, so you should be able to understand now.
Okay. Okay.
So if you started working with this kind of approach and the older approach, so you need to tell this file name in your configuration file.
Okay.
Like this. I commented here, right? Just for reference, I kept it. Means you have to tell that these are the settings that needs to be loaded as part of loading a Hibernate configuration file. Then you need to use this entry. Okay. If you are using annotations like this, so then also you need to tell that this is my Java class. It has to be loaded as part of configuration. So where it is the same with the next approach. This way. So either of the approach we will be following. Depends on the code. Compose dot day 33. Wherever the package, you need to tell them. Understood? In this configuration file, this property we are yet to discuss, and that will be seeing down the line. Okay. This is we follow the older approach when you are writing configuration files in XML. That option is rolled out. Right now we are using annotation. If you are using annotations, you can directly give your mapping class name. So here the tag name, if you look at it, mapping means your mappings are there in the class name itself.
Okay.
Clear? So till now what we did, we just created one Java class. In that Java class, using annotation, we told them what are the mappings for Java and DB. Nothing else we did. Agree?
Okay. Yeah, yeah. And the primary key we specified ID
Yes.
in the student table and database.
Yes. In the student table, obviously, by looking at the table itself, we usually tell, right? So what is ID name? Also,
Yeah.
it might be student underscore name or student underscore ID or student underscore number, anything. So for Hibernate, you have to tell that what is your primary call because it mainly works on the unique, the primary ID one.
Okay.
It refers to the unique row. So it
Mm.
has to have the primary key column is to be mentioned. Clear?
Understood.
Just we just added a configuration to configuration student to configuration Hibernate configuration, right? We'll just see whether it's loading successfully or not. There were no issues. Still, we are able to reach the system with these changes. So now we can proceed further with the remaining actions. Now to perform these actions like inserting, updating, deleting, and retrieving the records. Okay. That is all. So if you look the code, so we have opened a session, we have started a transaction. In between, we are going to write the code. So once we are done with it, we are committing a transaction, we are closing the session. If you remember the discussion, so for each and every activity that you are going to deal with a session database, we are going to create a session. We'll open a session and do the activity and we'll close the section. Session factory and configuration we'll do only once. But for each and every operation like save, update, delete and everything, we'll create a session and do the activity and close the section. Means each and every operation you'll come up with an action. Clear? And transaction is the object that we have discussed. So everything need to be part of the transaction. So inside that we are going to write the logic. Let's say we want to create a student, right? Go to student. This is the student. Names are followed. I just modified. Student. Okay, I'll add the constructor. It's easy for us. We can use that constructor directly. In student, I have added a constructor and I'm also adding a method. Name and date of birth. So we have created a student object. So usually when you are working with the JDBs, how we used to do? You used to create a new statement and we used to set all the values and you simply call the insert statement, right? So now you do not need to do all those things. So I simply say session dot process. So this line is going to save a record in database. In case if everything goes well, so we should see this message. Student saved successfully. We'll go to I'm refreshing this one. Harithaji, right? So we just inserted just now and the serial number is at 734. Let me insert once again. One more record. Right? Got it? So what is the complexity we did? So only these are the two lines. Actually, this is the only line which is replacing all those activities.
Yeah, just we created an object and we did.
Creation of an object is as usual, right?
Mm,
Whatever you want to trace, you need to create that object by filling with the required data. That
mm,
object
mm,
to pass it to session
mm.
by calling the appropriate method. So this is going to be saved.
Yeah, this persist.
Persist means
Everything.
persisting, saving the complete object is going to be saved.
Mm, okay.
Got it?
Mm,
So out of this code, so primary thing is this part. When you call a
okay.
persist, it is just applying a saving into that particular table, right?
Mm, mm.
Now look at the remaining activities like just in the save. So now we'll go for the update, delete, retrieve.
Okay.
Clear?
Mm, mm,
The same record will try to perform the remaining activities.
mm, mm.
Usually we'll create a separate methods, but right now this is a demo example. I'm coding everything in a single method because
Okay.
all we would like to view in the single.
Yeah. Yeah.
Once you know how to use it, you can separate in a separate methods, right?
Mm.
Let's say I would like to update it. See, I'm just copying the code completely. I'm just commenting. The reason is when I run for update, so say when this code also gets executed, right? Because it is
Mm, mm.
a
Yes.
method, I'm just commenting. If it was a separate method, I'll just comment a method call.
Mm.
Okay. So let's see
Understood.
what are the things that I'm changing. So this line is common, this line is common, and this line is going to change a little. So in update means what you have to do first, you need to get the existing record, right?
Mm.
So simply let's say here dot get class student dot class 34 ID is created for us. Test group. That's how I would like to update the name. What other things are changed? Only those three lines after computation,
Mm.
right?
Mm, mm.
So what I did, so in the when you are talking about update means we would like to modify the details which are there in the existing table, right?
Mm.
For that, first you should get the existing value, existing record, right? So
Mm.
with this line, what we are doing? So there is a get method on the session. For that get method, you need to tell what is your Java class name and what is the primary key. Unique ID, right? This indicates that give me a record whose student ID equal to 34.
Okay. Student ID equal to. Okay.
34.
Mm.
This is the second column is ID. Okay. 34
Mm.
and 35 are the records that we have inserted, right?
Mm.
So whose student ID equal 34. So if it is able to load that record, it will retrieve into the student object table. So the
So
student
we are
object
getting
Java.
a specific record and we are loading it. We are sending it to the student object.
Exactly. So okay, we are
Mm.
sending student object. Once you got into the object form, being a
Mm.
developer, you can manipulate whatever it is, right? I'm just
Yeah.
inputting the details. I'm just
Mm.
modifying the student name like that. You can modify anything, any of the fields, whatever you feel. Once you're
Mm.
done with all those modifications like this, all the set methods,
Mm.
simply pass it to the update method on the same session by passing the object.
Mm.
What does this do? Student updated successfully. So only for the save and this one, only the save case you have already update that you called for first and in the update case you are getting the existing object, you modify and you are calling save.
Mm. Mm.
Same kind of operation, right? The
Mm.
generally if it, general from general perspective, if you look at it, you need to get the object and send that object for
Okay.
Student update text only. Okay. For
Mm.
34, existing name is Artha. We just updated to hi Artha.
Yeah.
The existing name is Artha G. It seems.
That.
34. Now updated to hi Artha. Right?
Yeah.
It is updated. So whenever it's updated, the row comes to the bottom. That's all.
Mm.
What difference you have seen? For the save and update, only three things. So from general perspective, look at it. We are getting the existing object, changing the data, and passing it to the update to save the data.
Save the data. Yeah.
Right?
Mm.
Okay, still. Now I'll show that property. So this is the property we will refer. So here the property name is show SQL false. Means I told direct whatever you perform in the Hibernate using Java, it's going to generate a equivalent query for that particular database, right?
Mm.
The database query. So right now
Mm.
I have marked as show SQL false, means do not show me the SQL. So when you are working in a development mode, when you're debugging something, so we
Mm.
usually mark it as a true, because if you have any issue, so you should know what query exactly it is generated, right? Then only you can try to find some issue in the code if there is an issue, right?
Mm. Mm.
So you mark it as a true only in the development environment and the debugging. Once you are done with fixing that issue, suppose in the production you will mark it as false.
Mm.
So I'm just marked it as a true to show you the difference. I'm just updating it to show you the. So when I run this same program, now it will generate two queries.
Okay.
To show you two queries. See, two queries.
Okay.
Till now, the property was false, hence these two lines are not getting displayed. Only you're able to see the first one and the last one, right?
Mm.
Now I'm just made as enable true because I would like to see what is the query which is being generated by Hibernate on particular database.
Mm.
So what is this? Select query. So these are the field names because it's a general code. It will generate with the student ID 0, 1 and all the things. If you say select from student table name, right?
Mm.
This is just alias where student ID code so question mark means this is the result of your get query, get method. Get method, what you're saying, I would like to load a so-and-so record. That means
Okay.
what is that query in generally? When you want to view a particular record on the particular table, how you usually view, you write a select query, right?
Mm.
Right? That's what it has written for us. Select
Okay.
query where student ID equal to question mark because it will not show, it will only show you the query what it generated. Later on, this query is going to be executed with by passing 34 enter only.
Okay.
Okay. So because with the property that we enable is show SQL, so we would like to see the SQL what is generated behind the scenes.
Okay.
Okay.
Okay. Okay.
Do not get confused with these names here because this is generated code. The names will be like alias names. Here, the alias name is given as student 0. So student 0 dot ID and alias is given 00 like that. So forget, do not confuse with these names. Just simply what it is do it's selecting is it's selecting all the fields from table name
Okay.
whose student ID equal to question mark.
Oh, nothing but it is just giving the query what is generated in the background.
Yes, because the property that we enable is show SQL. So I would like to see the
Yeah.
SQL. So I showed you for you.
That, yeah, got it.
Got it?
Mm.
The next one. Once you update, once you got the object, you did your activities and you call the update query on the database table, right?
Mm.
Update student table, set date of birth, name, where ID code so and so.
Mm.
So then it has issued update query.
Mm.
Got it? So
Mm.
this line issued a get query. this line issued an update query. Understood behind what's happening? So these are queries are specific to the, suppose if you are running the same program in Oracle database, then it might be syntax is in case if it is different according to that Oracle database, it will generate the query compatible for Oracle. So that means we are not writing the query. So far, like whatever we did we write any query being a developer? This is these two things we did. So to write these things in, do you require Java database knowledge? Not required.
No.
If you have the general understanding what is database, what is select query, that should be fine, but doesn't need to get into the complete details.
Yes.
Hibernate is doing all those things for us.
Yes.
Clear. So it has generated. So we could able to save and update.
Yeah. Save, update.
I'll just enable once again save record.
Yeah.
So when I do this one, how many queries are it going to generate? Here we retrieved and then we saved, right? 2 queries. When I do this one, how many queries? Any guesses?
Okay.
No,
when you do that,
how many queries are going to generate if I execute this one after enabling that property show SQL true? So I have commented this part and I would like to show you this one something.
Okay.
So just a guess, like how many queries it is going to generate if I run this one?
Only one query.
Only one query, sure.
Yeah, to save the field.
Let's see. It's going to be more than one. 2 it is. 2 query. Now you should be able to tell.
Date of birth, name, ID.
First query. Just look at the first query. First query, what it is doing?
Hibernate sequence. Select next.
So here, did the 34 and 35 did we pass? No, right?
No, we didn't pass.
So whatever is the last generated number on the table using this program, so it has created a +1. So who is going to tell 34 or 35? First, it is going to query the database that what is the next value, incremental value. It is getting the first value, next student ID that I can insert. That value, that if I run this program now, I might have received 36 now. If I run once again, I will receive 37. Okay.
So when we are running this save part, so first it will ask, saving a record in a new record into the table. Yes. So first it will ask for the next value ID.
Yes, next, because we said in your configuration that it's generated one. So it is generated means you are asking Hibernate to generate. Hibernate should file. You have given a responsibility to Hibernate that when I'm saving a record, make sure to increment my student ID. So when you ask for incrementing, first you should know that what is the value, right?
Oh, so that's why we give generated value annotation.
Yes.
Okay.
If you're not using that generated annotation, this won't be in picture. Then you're supposed to pass a value for ID yourself. But usually for IDs, we go for the generated mostly.
Oh, okay.
Got it?
Got it.
So now you should be able to see the 36 record as well. Right?
36, yeah.
I'll comment this guy now. Go for a delete. So here, the delete query, what are the changes? Can you suggest?
We need to give the field name which we want to delete.
The row. We need to tell the row, right? Row wise. Talk about row.
Yeah.
Records, right? So we need to
records. Not the field. Yes, record. We need to specify that record.
That's all. So these are the 2 lines. So
Okay, getting the record into the student object and we are
I
deleting.
copy
Okay.
pasted same thing. I just modified those 2 things. So ask
Okay.
that give me the 34th record.
Okay.
You got the record? Delete that record. That's all.
Deleting that one. Okay.
The queries are first the select query. It has loaded the existing record and then you work the delete query.
Mm.
If you go to the database, should not say 34. There is no 34,
Yeah.
right?
No 34. Yeah. Mm.
If I rerun, what happens?
What is it?
If I re-execute same program, what happens? Re-execute the same program, what happens?
It will give the same result, right?
The result.
We didn't did any changes in that.
You got some error.
Oh.
You deleted. Once again, how can you delete the same thing, right?
Okay. Okay.
You need to do a small tweak here. What's giving here? There is a problem
Already.
with deletion, right? That means when you try to load this record, earlier it was able to load that student record and then you asked to delete, right?
Oh yeah. Yeah.
But when
Correct.
you're not able to find, then it's a developer responsibility to handle small logic. If student not equal to null, do the
Then
delete.
we delete. Yeah.
Else, give him information that this student is not available.
Available. Okay. That record is not
Not
available. Yes.
available.
Mm.
So I'm just changing the location of these messages. So if it is success, then only. Otherwise,
Oh yeah. Mm.
it's once you know how to write, we can write all these things. This is not a
Yeah.
complex.
Mm.
So now I got error, right? Now I'm not supposed to get the error. Instead, it should end up in a proper way. Right? Student ID is not available with the given ID. No matter like how many times it is, it should give the same thing. Suppose if the ID is valid, it will enter into this part. Ideally, copy paste the same thing we did, only these 2 lines, right?
Yes.
This is the if condition. We just put it as an additional effort to make the user that to inform the user that in a proper way. Right? Otherwise, this wouldn't have required.
Yeah.
We saved a record, updated a record.
The record deleted.
Retrieve means getting the records. So getting the record we are doing in both the
Save
things.
it. Yeah. Everything.
The update and delete before doing we are already getting.
Yeah, we are getting the record and we are changing and we are deleting.
Yes. So 4 operations are covered, right?
Yeah.
Save, update, delete, retrieve. Any confusion or anything you want me to repeat?
No, clear.
So just remember that we are doing in a single program. Otherwise, we would have created separate functions. Okay? Just for the convenience, because just to compare you everything, both the things are same. Everything is same. This is once I compare these 2 things, it's more convenient, right, for understanding perspective. Because lines difference are only 2 lines, 1 or 2 lines we are changing. That's just to show you that difference.
So first we created a Java Java class and the database page 1.
Database table usually will be created by database team. So they will tell that this is my database table name. You configure your Hibernate. So first we'll start with the Java class. In the Java class, you'll tell that what is your database field name, and for each field name in your Java, what is the corresponding field name in database. That's the primary thing that we need to configure.
Okay.
Right?
Okay.
Column name. This one is not optional.
So in Java class, we define everything, the entities there in the database.
Yes.
Okay. After that, we will map that in separate
in
XML.
configuration file.
Yeah, configuration file.
Older fashion is to create a separate XML files. If you are writing separate XML files, I do not need to write all these annotations. I'll simply
Oh,
take
but
simple Java class. Now we are using the latest one, advanced one. So that option is completely rolled out. So this is more convenient. So we
okay,
go for the
annotations.
annotations. If you use annotations, you need to make this entry. If you're not using annotations and if you're still following the old mapping configuration, you need to do this entry. So I just commented for reference so that both can be like at least you know.
Okay, okay.
I think this field as false. So you know anyway what it's generating. Clear? And these
Yeah,
settings are already in the basic database settings.
yeah, we saw that. Understood.
Understood, right?
Hmm.
Go to the next one. Hibernate query language. So this is somewhat similar to the wording like structured query SQL, right? This is HQL. You know SQL?
Yeah,
So this
structured
is
query language.
same way. This is Hibernate query language. That is
Okay.
almost similar to the same thing. So whatever you
Hmm.
do in the regular SQL, the same thing you do something in the Hibernate. So I'll just add some of the clauses. I'll comment this part as well. Hibernate query language is a object-oriented query language, similar to your regular SQL, what you usually do. But instead of
Hmm.
operating on the database table and the columns,
Hmm.
HQL completely works with a persistent. It completely works with your persistent objects and their properties.
Hmm.
Persistent object means student object, right?
Hmm.
So student properties and their properties. HQL
Hmm.
queries are translated by Hibernate into respective SQL queries, which in turn perform the action on the database.
Hmm. Hmm.
So, although you can use the regular SQL statements directly with Hibernate using a native SQL,
Hmm.
which is so native SQLs are SQLs. You can write a database specific queries directly.
Okay.
Okay. So in Hibernate, what I told you, you do not need to write database query, right? There are certain
Hmm.
cases in case if you wish to write database queries, still you can write. That is a native SQL that we'll see. But the ideal way, so though it supports the native SQL, better try to avoid that and try to use the maximum extent of like HQL queries wherever it's applicable.
Hmm.
Understood?
Hmm.
HQL queries are similar to your SQL query. So wherever it's
Okay.
feasible, go for HQL queries rather than the native SQL query that I am going to discuss on the bottom.
Okay. Okay.
Got it, right? In that it has
Hmm.
many clauses. So from clause has clause like that. So we'll be seeing something a lot.
So in Hibernate query language, we use the SQL queries.
Do not get confused with. We can use.
Oh, we can use. Okay.
There are certain cases that for
Okay.
specific to database, in case if you want to write a direct query, let's say you have a complex query, okay,
Okay.
so that may not be directly feasible in the HQL. There are certain cases, okay. So what you will do,
Oh,
those queries you can
then
directly write in a native specific query in the specific to the database. That feature is available in the native SQL.
okay. Okay.
Wherever it's possible, we go for HQL. So we'll ask
Okay.
Hibernate to take care of the queries. If in case if it's not possible, then you write your own query that is complete database query
Hmm.
specific to particular database. But
Okay.
least option, we'll maximum try to go for this one only because If the something is not supported, then only we go for this. Otherwise, we'll fulfill the requirement with this SQL. Whatever we do, simply we perform the same thing. SQL. What is the table name we are dealing? Student, right? I have to create just not for create. I'm using a from class, so I'm saying from student. This student here is nothing but your Java class. When I say from student, the query I just stored in a string variable, and that query I'm creating a query object. Whatever the query I've given, so I said simply from student means it's equivalent to your select star from student. Okay, so when I say select star from student without any condition, it's going to pull me all the records, right? Same thing is going to happen here. So I got, when I say query.list, so we should be able to see all the records of the database table in the results. So how many records I have? Around 32. So 32 records will be fitted into this list. In case you want to see, you can use the regular loops. You know, right?
Okay.
So this is going to show me all the records in that student table. So these are all the records. So just if you know, 34 we deleted. So 35 and 36 are there, right? So this is the records, all the records from the student table. So what I did, I just said the from student indicates that give me all the records which are there in the table. So here what it has done. So usually when we are working with regular scale, I'll enable this property also. I'm rerunning. So the query select all the fields from table name. So there is no question mark here. The reason is we are not fetching particular record. We are retrieving all the records, right? When it's student ID equal to question mark means we are expecting particular student ID record. Now we have all the records. So it has fetched. So one clause is the one of the clause is going to fetch all the records from the table. The next one, as clause. As clause is like just alias. Alias means duplicate name, that you know, right? You know, in general. So
Yeah.
what is the select student ID as some name is given, right? Like that. This is the database one. Like that, in case if you want to do in a HQL for this one, what you have to do, simply say as yes.
As is, okay.
So yes is a alias for student. So in the down the line, whatever you want to do, so I can simply say s dot. Got it?
Okay. We are referring student as S.
As it's a just alias.
Okay.
This is called the as clause. So simply we are going to give a name, shortcut name, so that we can use it for letter purpose. Here in the bottom case, it's so suppose you want to apply filterings. Where class order by where class. Suppose you wanted to fetch a particular record or based on certain conditions you want to apply in where class. How do we do that? Where S is alias, right? Icon. Result ID equal to 35. So what does this mean? Give me records whose ID equal to 35. How many records we are going to get? We are going to get only one record. So 35 is having only one record, right? So if you look at the generated query, given the 35 directly instead of question mark, right? With the value. Then the where clause. Where clause you are saying, right?
Yeah. Where?
Next one.
Such okay.
Order by means sorting.
Yeah.
I would like to sort as so and so. I'll remove where clause. The reason. If you can see more than one record, then only you can see the sorting difference, right?
Yeah.
Sort and so and so. So I'll say simply order by where start name. Something sort me all the records.
Yeah, by name. Oh yeah.
So earlier we used to get our even records at the bottom, right? Maybe
Yeah.
here.
Yeah, understood. Okay.
If you want to sort in the reverse order, descending. By default, whenever you ask for sort, it will be ascending. So you are asking for descending now.
Okay.
Just a reverse option. So it is at the bottom now. So till now we are retrieving complete object, right? When I say from student, so it's going to give me the student object directly. Assume that in student table you have 100 fields. When you say from student, all those 100 fields, 100 columns are going to be retrieved into your object, right? Maybe your requirement is to read only 2 or 3. If that is the case, why to retrieve all the 100 columns from the database? It's unnecessary load, right? We can go for the select clause. Yes. Select clause is to select a specific columns based on your requirement. As simply as
now we are using select.
I will say
Select
the table column name. The name only I would like to select. Okay. When I execute this query, I'm going to get the records in the only one column I will retrieve.
Okay.
Only one column we are asking, right? When I say directly from student, I'll get
from student. Okay. But we are having as this order by name.
Yeah, now I added this part. Select only student name.
Okay.
So this give me student name. Only one column. So
one column. Only name column.
Exactly. So this doesn't work out because this student object this is not in the student object form now. Earlier, when you say directly from student, you'll get the student object. Now I'm fetching only the required columns of my choice. Then I will not get the student object. I'll get some kind of an string array kind of thing. So this doesn't.
Yeah.
So what you have to do simply, you'll get the same thing, but in a different format.
Yeah, in string form.
Yes. Wait a minute. Right?
Oh, here also, okay. In descending order, we got that.
We just give descending. If remove, you'll get it in ascending. based on the information that is supplied.
Mm.
Right now it's ascending.
Okay.
The primary focus is this one, select clause.
Okay.
If you have hundreds and thousands of columns in the particular table, when I say from student, I'll get all those 1,000 columns, which is a huge burden for me unnecessarily. If I am not, only fetch only the required thing, right?
Yeah.
That's why you have to select clause.
Okay.
Clear?
Clear.
The confusion, the from clause is going to fetch all the records. As clause is to just to give the alias name.
Okay.
To apply where conditions. So want to filter the data. Order to sort the record. Select
Sorting.
to specify a particular column based on your choice.
Okay.
Got it?
Okay. Specific columns from the table. Okay.
Yeah. So I just showed you the student name, right? We said the first student name. I got the student name. This is so we go with the HQL. I'll comment everything now. Hibernate criterion queries. Hibernate criteria queries. So all these are in the different ways. Okay. The Hibernate itself like. So when you are working with HQL, the name itself is HQL. So it's equal to SQL. Means you are end up with the kind of like writing a query similar to your SQL, right?
Yeah.
Not exactly 100%, but somewhat similar to you used to write here. Because its name is HQL and dealing with the SQL. So somewhat having a closer relation with the structural actually way of writing a queries perspective. Now we are moving to the next one. Criteria queries. Hibernate provides another alternate way for manipulating with your objects. In turn, database values in the RDBMS table. One of the method is the criteria API, which allows you to build up your criteria query object programmatically where you can apply rules and logical conditions. So the previous case we were writing everything in the query format, right? Now you are going to call kind of a function. So here you will not write something like in the form of query. You will create an object, you will set the value, you will apply the value. So based on all the settings, it will generate a query in the background.
Okay.
We'll create a criteria, and for that criteria, we'll apply all the restrictions. I'll show you to write a criteria directly, then it should be much more convenient. So for anything, so we need to end up with a creation of session as usual. So I'm just starting with that. So here. So class student. So this indicates that you are mapping your criteria object to student class.
Okay.
Let's say I would like to retrieve a record whose ID equal to so and so. Simply I say criteria dot add restrictions equal I'll explain it. 35. What does this mean? 3 lines I've added. First one, I'm just referring to the student object. Okay. Next one I said for the same. So here we have created a criteria object. For the same criteria object, I'm adding other things. Means criteria dot add restriction equal restriction it means you can say equal restriction I would like to apply on the field name ID. So what does this mean is it's equal to where ID equal to 35. The restriction means a where condition, right?
Oh,
The
okay.
logical
Yeah,
type
yeah.
apply equal condition means where ID equal to 35.
Okay.
So if
EQ means equal.
is equal, so if we say LT less than GT greater than,
Okay,
let's say
okay.
ID greater than 35, ID less than 35. Okay,
Okay. Okay, so in HQL we write like this.
right. Generally,
Okay.
if you know, like if you have some idea on the Linux programming, do you have any idea?
And no, I don't have idea on
There
Linux.
we have like kind of like shell script programming. There we have EQ, LQ, and Q. Just
Uh,
it's not mandatory, but once you
uh,
see that property, EQ means equal, LQ means less than. The readability itself we can make it.
okay.
So this line indicates that apply vary condition whose ID equal to 35. So that means what you are trying to do here, we are writing in the same way. So here we are
Yeah.
writing in the physical query point of view. Here it doesn't even look like a query. You are
Yeah.
some object and do some settings. Means you are calling property with something. Ideally, it generate a select query. So it has generated something, right? How do we display? We'll just copy paste the same stuff.
So the result will be of list type.
List type, right? So I'll just need to and copy paste the old one instead of root. Got it?
So what we are doing that with add method, we are adding the
Condition means here you are directly straight away you are writing a query. Here you are not
okay.
writing a query directly. You are building a query on the fly.
Okay.
Let's say in the front end you have provided a text field saying that give me a record whose ID is so and so. So based on the condition, based on the user input that he has given, I might apply this condition, I might not apply dynamically.
Yeah.
Right? Suppose if you have some condition, suppose, then only I'll apply restriction. What happens? If that condition is satisfied, then only vary condition apply. If
Yeah,
not
or else
satisfied, I'm not
we
applying the
can't.
vary condition. So what it does, it will give all the records. Got it? So based on it's a kind of like a dynamic SQL we say. So based on the user selection on the fly, I'm building the query.
Okay,
The
okay.
option is available on the criteria. But in this case, I do not have an option of building the query on the fly. Because if you want to do something, you have to specify everything in the query itself.
Okay, okay.
So there are certain cases that so your screen might be filled up with a lot of options. You cannot write all the queries, right? You'll write a generic query and there you'll pass the different things. Right? So that's why it's a kind of a dynamic SQL kind of thing.
Okay.
My mistake, I removed complete line. Right? Only one record we fetched and that record we have received. Right? Suppose set let's greater than GT means greater than, right? So I'm asking for all the records whose ID is greater than 30. So whatever the records, at least we should say the 35 and 36. So a couple of records, right? These are not based on ID, hence you might see the wrong values.
Okay.
Those are not inserted by Hibernate. So this ID doesn't care, it simply ignores. So 35 and 36, 31, 35.
Hello?
36. Hello?
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 Srinivas? Yeah, now I'm able to hear you now.
Yeah, I'm just talking about these things. So 35 and 36 are the records which are inserted for us, right? We can see the condition accordingly. So here, basically, I'm trying to view the records in a dynamic SQL format. So if the user asks for something, based on that, I'll add this property to criteria. If a user is not asking anything, I might not add this one.
Okay.
Understood now?
Okay. Okay. Understood.
That's criteria.
Or else, if you won't ask any criteria, by default it will give the list of the.
Exactly. Assuming that
Yes.
you are providing a text field in the user screen and submit button. Okay. The text field means is to provide a particular student. Enter student ID in case if you want to view a particular student. So let's say user has entered a student ID. So if that field is not null, then you'll apply this condition. Okay. Suppose
Okay.
if he is not entered anything, then you are not going to apply anything. That means user is not viewing for a particular thing, means then we treat the default behavior as view all the records. So then I will not apply this condition. If I am not applying this condition, what happens? It will view all the records, right? So my basic intention of highlighting is you can dynamically apply property based on certain conditions. Because if you wish to apply, you do not wish to apply based on the values, you can take a decision in the criteria. That's you have the feature. But whereas when you are working with HQL, you need to end up with writing whatever you want. Suppose if you take a where condition.
So criteria is the main feature in HQL.
It's all depends on the requirement. If you do not have the dynamic behavior, then you can also go for the HQL.
Okay. Okay. Oh.
So it's all depends on the need. So that's what we are
If
trying.
you don't have any dynamic requirements, so no need to write this criteria, everything.
No need to go for the criteria. You can go with HQL.
Okay. Okay.
In HQL also, we are able to perform all the operations we have seen, right?
Yeah.
In different clauses. That's how it lands.
Okay. Okay. Understood.
Here the criteria. The native SQL. So we little discussed and just I'll rehighlight the same thing. There are certain cases that you might not support the database, the Hibernate specific things. So, okay. You can always use your native SQL to express the database queries. If you want to utilize the database specific kind of a feature, such as in database, you might be having something. Okay. If you want to write those specific queries directly, you can also do the same thing directly using a native SQL. Okay. This is my database. So in database, how do I write?
SQL, right?
I'm sorry?
SQL means HQL.
No. Native SQL means it's a native. Means original queries specific to database that you can write.
Okay. You used that word before also, that's why.
Yeah,
okay.
When I'm writing this, when I'm discussing about HQL, I just spoke about the native SQL.
Okay.
Native means original.
Okay.
Specific to database. Okay. When you are writing HQL query, you are not writing queries specific to database. You are writing a query. You are just applying on the Java objects. Hibernate is creating a queries for you. When you are writing native queries, you are doing everything. Means you're not asking Hibernate to generate a query. You are creating queries specific to database because you know that I'm using the database Oracle for lifetime. So I'll write a query which works for Oracle directly. So in future, if I'm switching the database, what happens? Then I have to modify my code wherever I'm using a native SQL because those queries doesn't work out if I switch to some other database.
Oh.
Got it? The drawback?
Oh, so that's why we don't use this.
Don't use. It's an exceptional case.
Okay.
In case if you really need to use, usually what happens in the development environment, we might use the freely available databases to go for development. When you deploy to the client must purchase the license. He has a capability. He can spend a lot of dollars on purchasing a license because it's obviously it's a licensing issue, right? You might purchase the Oracle. So you need to deploy your project on the Oracle. So it should work, right? If you code in the development environment, if you coded a native SQL, then everything will be stored up in the Oracle. So then you have to rework. So only in the exception cases where it doesn't support, then you have to go for it.
Understood.
It's once again case to case. So there are certain cases that they don't change the database. Then it's up to the decision. Okay. How do you write the native queries? Forgot to copy session. This is how you write a native query. So here, if you observe the table name, did you use a capital letter? Yes. If you observe the top everywhere, I used a capital student. So capital
Yeah. Yes.
your Java class name. Ideally, if you write Java class name is like this, you have to use this name in writing a SQL query. Got it?
Oh, okay. Why? Because we are giving the Java object.
Yes, Java object. So everything is based on object. So, but this is
Okay.
not object. This is just a direct table name, whatever I'm using in the database. So, student, right? It's a student, right? And ID and date of birth also. ID and name I'm simplifying. Suppose if you are referring, where is that? Yeah. Here, has dot name. Suppose if it is date of birth, how I have to refer? Java property has to be referred. So here, date of birth means date of birth has to be referred because everything you are going to speak in terms of like Java properties only. Java class name, this name is nothing but Java field name, not the DB field name. Okay. But if you refer in HQL, it's everything is based on the field names of DB, original names, the native names.
Okay.
Real mistake. The column debug was not found. Okay. So I didn't retrieve all, right? The results is simply all. So you understood the issue? It's clearly said the mistake what we did. The column debug was not found. So here we have
Okay. It's
DOB
not
also.
able to find DOB,
Yeah,
date of birth.
correct. Star.
Okay. Then gives the whole table.
Whole table. Right? Result also I got the same thing, but here the query is this is database query. Got it?
Okay.
See the show SQL true.
So what happened to the before one? Why it gave the error as it is not able to recognize
I
the.
selected only two fields, right? ID and name. It was
Yeah.
not date of birth, hence it got the error here.
Yeah.
So this is a copy pasted code from top, right? So I didn't modify it, forgot to modify.
Okay.
Straight away I ran and I got the error. Understood?
Understood.
So native queries are specific to Hibernate. So specific to database means if you are using Oracle, the Oracle query you are talking about. Whatever the database you are dealing, underlying query you are dealing.
Okay. Whatever database where we use.
Specific to that database when you talk, those queries are called native queries. Means original queries specific to that particular database. Any database, we are saying there's a native to that particular database. Those are original queries. But all the queries which are coded here are not native queries because those are HQL queries and criteria and objects and all those.
Understood.
Clear? Any confusion or anything you want me to repeat in these topics?
No, clear.
Clear? So, any doubts on today's class?
No.
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 So I think is maximum for today. Sufficient.
Oh yeah, today I think.
It's complete technical, right? Lot of queries we have seen, right? So I think I
Yeah,
do not
it's
want
still.
to pressurize with a lot of other things. So if you are okay, then we would like to stop.
Yeah, I can't take
Yeah,
that.
yeah. So if that's what,
Or else
if
I
that's
will
what,
get confused.
yeah, yeah. Even I do not want to make that like. Otherwise, there is no point of discussing all these things.
Yeah.
Okay, Arita,
So,
I think we are good for today.
yeah. So tomorrow also 7 o'clock, right?
Tomorrow also 7 o'clock.
Hmm.
So I like Friday wise still I'm not sure.
Hmm.
So initially I thought of completing for tomorrow.
Hmm.
In case if I can complete tomorrow, we will
Hmm.
complete maybe by
Hmm.
extending half an hour. In case if it
Hmm.
works for us. In case
That's okay.
I'm not,
Hmm.
in case if I'm available on Friday, tomorrow
Hmm.
also we'll stop around 1.5 hours.
One
So the
and a half.
Friday will continue the remaining topic.
Okay.
So I'll come to another tomorrow only. That's fair. Okay.
Ah, okay.
Otherwise,
Okay.
we'll extend half an hour to freeze
Hmm.
the remaining things.
Okay.
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 Tomorrow we'll be switching into the spring.
No. Okay.
Okay,
No.
Rita. Continue.
So hibernates are completed. We completed hibernate.
Yes,
So tomorrow the springs.
spring we'll be looking into it.
Okay.
Okay.
Bye.
Okay, Rita. Bye. Good night.
Good night.